welcome to the Machine Ethics Podcast. Keen listeners amongst you have probably noticed that this isn't the voice of Ben Byford. I'm in fact another Ben. I'm Ben Gilbert. I know this is going to be a little bit confusing, two Bens creating this podcast, so to alleviate the confusion, Ben Byford and I have spoken, and we've agreed that we will refer to Ben Byford as the other Ben from here on out, whereas I'll be known simply as Ben. I assure you we have agreed this isn't a complete abuse of power while I'm in control of the microphone. In this episode, we're going to be hearing from Rohin Shah. Rohin's a sixth-year PhD candidate at UC Berkeley and writer of the Alignment newsletter. We hope you enjoy this episode. So, hello and welcome to the Machine Ethics Podcast. Today I'm joined by Rohin Shah. Rohin, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Rohin. I'm a sixth-year PhD student at the Center for Human Compatible AI at UC Berkeley. Yeah, interesting things about me. I write a newsletter about AI alignment. It is unimaginatively called the Alignment newsletter. And my research is basically focused on this general problem of how do we get AI systems that do what we intend them to do, given that we can't literally write down exactly what we want them to do.
Yeah. And looking at your website as well, I saw almost vegan.
Oh, yeah. It's an interesting policy. So I care about the suffering of animals on factory farms, which normally you'd think would say I should just be vegan and never eat any animal products whatsoever. Yeah. The particular situation that comes up in my case fairly often is that I'm going to some sort of event. The event has a bunch of free food, and it's got vegetarian options but not vegan options. So in those sorts of situations, I will eat the vegetarian food and donate the money saved by having free food.
Yeah, it feels almost like a lesson of what we find when we're trying to do things which are regarded as ethical AI, where there is no one universal answer. It's always going to be an edge case. And you can't have this one universal policy of I'll do this and in every instance this is the right choice. You've got to treat things on a case-by-case basis. But, and we have a question which we always ask at the start of these episodes, because sometimes the answer changes from person to person. Mm-hmm. But could you tell us, what is AI?
Yeah, I kind of hate this question. It's so freaking difficult. I don't know. To some, AI is that which we cannot yet do, and therefore we can never achieve it. I don't like that particular definition. I usually think of AI systems as systems that are autonomously acting in the world. They receive, some sort of inputs, do some sort of cognition in scare quotes, and then produce some sort of outputs, typically in the pursuit of some goal. This includes a thermostat, it's not a great definition, but I've not been able to find a good one.
But I suppose is that a definition that works within the context of your work? So what you regard as AI when you're working?
I think for me, I focus on a much more narrow subset of AI systems by default. I usually look at deep reinforcement learning in particular. And there you can have a much more formal and technical definition. Yeah.
It's I've had a similar question faced to me throughout my work, which is a slightly more general one. But for years, technology companies have been going through the conversation of asking, what is digital?
Oh, no.
It's dreadful. My best answer is, people will always say, digital's not a technology, it's like a state of mind, it's a way of working. No, that's not digital, that's being an entrepreneur. You've used the wrong word. Can we stop, please? Sorry, sidetracking myself. And could you give us a description of I suppose you've slightly done it in your introduction as well, but what do we mean when we're talking about AI safety?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things that people could mean by AI safety. I am going to focus on what I call AI alignment, which is not necessarily an agreed upon term, but I'm usually thinking of how do we build an AI system that is trying to do what we want it to do. What exactly does it mean for an AI system to be trying something? Well, don't really know, but we're hoping that we could figure something out that would make that work. Because there's this other, you could shoot for, we want an AI system that actually does what we want it to do.
Yeah.
This seems like basically unachievable just because like there will be some things that your AI systems don't know. It could make a mistake and like do something bad because of that. And you aren't going to be able to eliminate all the mistakes a priori without ever running your AI system. So I am trying for that hopefully easier thing of like trying to do what you want.
Yeah.
There are other things that other people mean by AI safety. So for example, for people who are putting AI systems on planes, they have a much more strict notion of safety. And they in fact do try to do this. It will never make a mistake. And so they try to prove theorems that say something like, as long as the wind forces on the airplane are at most such and such, and as long as like these other conditions hold and the like engine operates in this particular way, and like the actions have like these particular effects on the plane, then the plane will never crash.
Yeah. So do we have a sort of gauge of where those kind of different things happen, where you've described in the first instance we're talking about it can try, and that seems like a very different sort of interpretation of robustness compared to, as you're saying, for the fly-by line, like the autopilot on an aeroplane.
Yeah. So in some sense you might be like wondering, well, why don't we just go with the thing that we already have? Seems like we've got some theorems that work this way, and we can just like try and scale those up to the systems that we actually care about. I think this is, on the face of it, a reasonable intuition. The reason I don't subscribe to it is that the real world is just like super, super complicated.
Yeah, everything's an edge case.
Yeah, everything is an edge case, right? And the nice thing about airplanes is, I mean, I hesitate to say that like aerodynamics are easy.
Yeah.
It's not. But still, it's like governed by like simple equations that we like at least can over approximate without introducing a huge amount of approximation error. This just seems not very true in the real world. Like in the real world, you can be like, oh, well, there could be like, or even in the airplane case, like your theorems are not going to say, oh, if lightning strikes the airplane, then the airplane is like fine.
Yeah. And how does it strike the airplane? Which parts of the airplane?
Exactly.
How can you lightning strike it?
And like similarly in the real world, there are like just lots of these sorts of things that are sort of like lightning strike type things.
Yeah.
Like just having weird exceptional situations is really the norm in everyday life.
I've heard this sort of comparison between like autonomous vehicles and autonomous planes. People sort of saying, well, surely it's way more difficult to fly a plane than drive a car. We can do that. Why can't we make cars? And the comparison, well, yes, it's difficult for you to fly a plane because you've not trained on one. And the taking off and landing, yes, that's complicated. But otherwise, we're dealing with miles between obstacles. You have minutes to react in a car. As much as you're only traveling at 70 miles an hour, there are meters between objects. You have split seconds to react. So
Oh, I like this analogy. This is a great analogy. I'm going to use it sometime.
You're quite welcome. Always reference me. Never need to do that. So, could you tell me why you think we need to be worried about powerful AI systems?
Yeah. So there is this tradition tradition is the wrong word. The way AI research is done, typically, is you assume that you have some specification of the behavior that you want. Some specification that's like handed down from God, basically. It's like correct, never wrong. You can trust it absolutely 100%. And this is like not limited to deep reinforcement learning. In that case, it's the reward function that is the specification handed down to you. But it also applies to other kinds of AI, like in search you have a goal state, in logic you have the like Boolean formula that tells you whether you're done, whether you've satisfied the like constraint. In constraint satisfaction programming, there's like a set of constraints. So point being, in AI, it is specify what to do, and that specification is assumed perfect, and then do it, find a way to do it. And the AI part is in the finding the way to do it part. The like core problem as I see it is like we don't have a good way of specifying what to do. Like in the real world, just it is very difficult to specify literally and completely and in all situations what an AI system should do. And since all of our AI methods assume such a specification, they are going to be very hard to apply in this setting. With particularly intelligent agents, if you give them this A goal that is certain that it like is pursuing with all of its intelligence, if you like actually take that seriously, it implies some like very weird conclusions. So for example, by default, any system that is pursuing a long-term goal is going to want to survive. It's not going to let you turn it off if it can help it, because if you turn it off, it doesn't achieve its goal. Similarly, it's going to maybe try to like gain a bunch of power in the world, gain a bunch of computing resources so that it can explore more of the like possibilities in order to achieve its goal, right? You don't need to, like, without programming this in, just from the fact that it's like pursuing a goal, for most goals, this tends to arise. And if we can't get the goal, if we don't know how to specify the right goal, then it will end up, pursuing the goal even though we don't want it to.
Other concerns around, I mean, not just the goal we try to program into it, but like the sub-goals it might create for itself to try and achieve the sort of, I guess, ultimate utility function.
Right. So I think the survival example that I gave is in some sense a sub-goal. Is that the sort of thing you were mentioning?
Yeah, I think so. That sort of thing where we're saying the AI, we might have told it to maximize some other thing, but it's thinking that people might get in its way and prevent it from being able to fulfill that.
Yeah, exactly. In some sense, I feel like these sub-goals are like the entire reason there is a problem or something. Like, to the extent that people are going to prevent it from achieving its goal, which, if the goal is not the same as our goals, we probably would, it is going to want to stop us from doing that. And that seems like a bad thing. You don't want a like very intelligent system trying to stop you from doing things. It will probably succeed.
So what sort of solutions are people looking into for this? Is there a way that we could perhaps limit or redline things that it could create in a sub-goal? Yeah,
so there are a bunch of things that people are doing. You mentioned limiting the AI system. So there's like, I like to categorize it into two different things. There's like one set of approaches, which is limiting the AI system, basically preventing it from ever taking catastrophic actions, but not saying whether or not it'll be useful in the like non-catastrophic cases. And then there's the other case, which is like, we are going to make this AI system useful to humans, and like part of being useful to humans is like not doing anything catastrophic. So on the limiting side, as you mentioned, some things that people look into are like, one is called boxing. So in boxing, basically, you try to constrain the input-output channels that the AI has. Like maybe all it can do is like write text on a monitor. It can't do anything more than that. And like then, and the hope is that if an AI is constrained in this way, then it's not going to be able to like do anything particularly bad. It's like unclear if this actually works. Maybe a super intelligent agent could like write really convincing text that tells a human, hey, like really what you should be doing is like giving me access to like a whole bunch of other stuff, and then like the human's convinced and does that, and that's pretty bad.
I remember reading from Eliezer Yudkowsky's AI box experiment where as just a human level intelligence, he has convinced people to allow him out of the box. How? I don't know. I have theories as to what I do, but who knows?
Those are definitely interesting experiments. I am also curious how he did it. Also have theories, but
All right. What's your top theory for how he's done it?
I forget exactly. So like there's an obvious way to do it, but I think he said he didn't do it this way, which is just tell the other person, hey, if you let me out of this box, then people will be convinced AI risk is real, and then people...
Precisely. Right. You say for the media story, let me out. And then people will take notice.
I think he said that is not what he did. But I'm not sure.
I suppose not related to that idea of boxing, but also related to how we're choosing sort of human-centric or useful applications of AI. Are there areas where you think we should be pursuing AI more greatly? And the converse to that, are there areas where you think we should limit our use of AI?
So I'm gonna answer this question like on the current margin, basically just like changes to the current world. I feel like in general, I want more use of AI technology, in the sense that current systems are like pretty different from the sorts of systems I worry about. They don't have this generality, this ability to like generalize to new domains, to plan in new situations that it hasn't encountered before. But they are still like quite useful. So for example, you brought up self-driving cars. Man, sure seems like a great application if we can get it to work. And like, it seems like we're getting close to getting it to work. But that's something that people are already invested in pretty well. I think we could stand to be a bit less risk averse around self-driving cars. Like the goal is to get them to be like safer than humans, not perfectly safe.
Yeah.
And like at that point, it's a net win to put them on the roads.
So it's an interesting argument where I think if they were precisely as safe as human drivers, those sorts of conversations, people often say I'd still rather a human, because it's almost as though they want someone to blame if there's an accident, which partly I appreciate, like the human thing, if you want to be able to blame someone for having done something wrong. But also you've got to think, normally fatal car accidents, people don't do them intentionally.
Yeah.
If you are the person driving and someone has died as a result of your driving, that's probably going to be pretty damaging to your life as well.
Yep, that seems pretty true.
Yeah, but if you sort of change the numbers a bit, and if you say, all right, we're not saying we'll make it 1,000 times safer, but say it's twice as safe as a human driving, half as many fatal accidents, would you rather that you had a human to blame, or that it was half as likely as your friend, a family member, significant other was involved in a car accident? People start thinking, you know what, I'll do it without someone to blame.
Yeah, seems good.
Yeah,
it's an interesting question. You definitely want, like, in the case where like a human, like sort of the use, besides the like ability to ascribe blame and like sort of have like outlet for your emotion or something, for which I think blame the AI, that seems fine to me. I think there's also like, in terms of like the law that you also want the ability to be compensated, for which we have insurance. And like, I don't know, maybe people are imagining that like if the AI is driving the car, then there will be like some big corporation that's like, you are accepting the risk of being driven by the self-driving car. If you get killed, we do not promise to pay anything. And I think to the extent that consumers will be like, no, I'm not getting in the self-driving car, then I think like companies will just be like, okay, well, we just will compensate you if you die. It seems like, or like they will buy their own insurance or something like this. So I feel relatively okay about that.
Yeah.
Like I just sort of expect the world to figure it out at some point. Sorry, that was maybe a bit of a tangent.
That's all right. I think this is intended to be almost entirely tangents.
Great.
We're doing the right thing. So do you have any thoughts on areas where you would limit? If you start on like the present day type of AI, things that we have now.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say because so people talk about, for example, like recommendation algorithms are like causing extreme political views. It's hard for me to say because I don't really understand how exactly this happens. I would want to know more about the algorithms. Like, in some sense, I want Netflix to keep recommending movies to me. That seems like a good thing. But maybe I don't. And I also want YouTube to like recommend videos often. Like there is a source of value there. And then there's also a source of disvalue in that apparently, or not apparently, I think it's pretty likely that like in fact these algorithms also cause people to become extremists in ways that are like caused by fake news. But I don't know how to fix it, and I don't know that I would say that taking away the recommendation algorithms entirely is better than having them. So very non-committal answer, mostly because I'm just not an expert in this, and it's like, I don't know, people talk about risks a lot. People rarely talk about the benefits. You've got to trade them off, and in the world where your option is like deploy this algorithm or don't, which is like what it is when you haven't solved the problem yet, you like also need to quantify the benefits if you want to make a good decision. And in most areas of AI, I just don't really know what they are.
Yeah, but looking further out, so where some of your work centered on that sort of general intelligence.
Yeah.
Are there areas where you think we wouldn't want to have a machine taking over human thought?
Yeah, so there's like, I think there are only really a few cases that are sort of like not pathological exactly, but like edge cases is probably a better word for it. Like service industries, for example. Like, this is not a great description of me, but other people seem to like the human touch. I am much happier with an automated system to schedule my dentist appointment or something if it works well. But some people like talking to a person on the phone in order to do this, and like that seems like a place where we would still want humans involved. I could imagine people, or things like the Olympics. Like if you just build a robot that can like play tennis really well and have it play against humans, this seems like not as interesting. Like Olympics are about like human achievement, right? So like the Olympics probably still should be played by humans.
But on the earlier point with the phone call and liking to speak to a person, it reminds me of the Google Duplex service, particularly when it was announced at the I/O conference. And I mean, listening to it, were we not sort of primed watching that video to know that it's an AI, you think, this just sounds so much like a human. It's adding in all these
I would have been fooled.
Like all these things which you think that's not utility, that's not the Google Assistant. It is just adding them in because there is some utility to someone believing it's a human, and they'll give it a bit more time to find the right time slot on the right day. So, people watch that at the conference, you sort of have the faces in the crowd of minds being blown in front of your face. But then, like a day or two after, the sort of public response was, but it's really dishonest. Like people think they're interacting with a human and they're not. And I suppose Google did iterate on that slightly. I think their change was that each time it calls, it will say, "Hi, sorry, I am a robot, just to let you know, Google Assistant, but work with me here to
so it's a very interesting thing. I'm like, the revealed preferences of humans are that like we want to know when we are talking to an AI versus a human. I feel like there's such interesting social science to be done here about like why. What exactly is it? Like, if the AI is going to respond just as a human would, why is it so bad that we're talking to an AI and we don't know it? Seems not ridiculous. If I pretended to be a girl while I was talking on the phone, no one would be like seriously offended at me or something like this, right?
I suppose perhaps that's with the like pretending to be a girl thing, but it's like when people find out and their expectations different from what they thought was there, and this is going on a bit of a philosophical tangent, so my turn for the tangents, but like in Jean-Paul Sartre's work where he talks about being a nothingness, so he's got this sort of concept of nothingness, which is really just like the extension of what we expect to be there and what we receive. So he's sort of talking about Pierre at the cafe, or he said he's meeting his friend Pierre there, and he goes to the cafe expecting to see him, in the world before mobile phones, and Pierre's not there. And even though this cafe is full of people, to him it feels like it's empty. And it's sort of that thing of people were projecting an expectation onto the system they were talking to, thinking that there is emotional experience behind that voice. Then when the person turns up, their dentist appointment, turns up for the restaurant booking, and then they say, "Oh, your friend who booked was all right. Sorry, that was my phone. It was a bit of software." Okay. I just feel a little feel a bit off now that I found out.
Seems right. So there's like a few things that could be going on there, right? One is like the violation of expectations. Then another one is like I wanted to be talking to a person who like really gets emotions or something like that, or has an internal experience or something. And like that's probably not true of AI systems today, but like I don't know. Like I think probably this AI did not have an internal experience. Maybe. I don't know. Consciousness is confusing. But like, does it understand emotions? Maybe. Depends. Like, you now have to like really start unpacking what you mean by the word understand. Like people will say, "Oh, it's just curve fitting," and I don't know. My response to this is like, man, if curve fit, like, I don't, like, neural nets can approximate any computable function. I claim that human brains are, like, still a computable function. Maybe some people will disagree with me on that, but I think that's a fairly normal claim.
I suppose we get into conversations of, is there some sort of emergentism? Is there some sort of panpsychism? You know, those are questions for
right.
the day.
But, like, if we like have that, it's, like, possible in principle that like this so-called curve fitting can like just be a human brain and like do all the same computation as a human brain. And so so I think like there's just a deeper analysis to be done here of like what exactly do we mean by understand, when can we say AI systems have achieved it. There aren't really knockdown arguments one way or the other. It's
we
an
sort
area
of seem
that
to tie understanding with conscious experience, and I don't know why, but it seems to be quite a common thing.
I mean, I don't know. Probably people like agree that AlphaGo understands Go. Probably. Maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, seeing its moves being made, people would describe what's happening as creativity. But then hearing it's an algorithm, they'll say, it's just probability. I
use probability. I like probability. It helps me make better decisions.
It helps me be more creative. I want to take it back to something you mentioned quite a lot earlier when you were talking about what is AI alignment. You were saying we're trying to align AI with the things that we want it to do. And the particular word in that I think is interesting is like the we in there. So what I'm interested in this is how do we define who we is?
So lots of fun stuff to be talked about here. So here's one story. In one story, there's just no we, and we just like have AI systems that can be aligned to a specific human. And you like buy your own super intelligent AI system, and it is, the factory like makes it so that it is aligned to you using some mechanism.
We'll assume there's a lot of agents, so there's no like single pole of power.
And so then like everyone buys their own like super intelligent agents. The like police get their AI agents to help them catch criminals. Criminals get their AI agents to like better evade the police, and so on. And like what this looks like is like sort of like the existing world, but like turbocharged and going like way faster and being like more intelligent and having more impacts everywhere. Whether you think this is good or bad depends on like your view of like how the world progresses. On like one view is like, man, we've like come such a long way since like our ancestors, where like the standard of life gets better all the time, and like probably that's just what's going to happen when we get all these AI systems. And then like a different way you could see it is like, man, as we've gotten more and more capable, we've had more and more destructive technologies, and like it's been easier and easier for us to obliterate everything. And like we just like keep fighting wars, and eventually if we like have this like super powered, if AI powers us all, then like eventually someone somewhere is going to have a super destructive technology that destroys everything, and so this is like terrible. And like both of these views sound reasonable to me, and I'm like, I don't know which one is actually right. I lean more towards the former than the latter, but like not totally clear. So that's one story where everyone gets their own individual AI system. You can imagine another story where like all the like social choice theorists and all the voting theory theorists all get together and like say this is like the one true system by which we can like get maybe not one true system. There are like lots of impossibility results saying you can't do that, but like this is a like sufficiently good system for like getting the preferences of all of humanity.
It's convergent values of.
And then like feed them into an AI system that like can then optimize it. This has like some tricky questions of you start with this, you have to start dealing with tricky questions of like identity. Like if at some point, like if you're really thinking long term, if you think of like at some point maybe humans can upload themselves to computers. If that becomes possible, well then it's now possible to make copies of yourself. You could also imagine cloning as a way to do this. If you can make copies of yourself, especially if they're cheap, then like if you do normal democracy, you can just like turn money into votes very easily by just like creating a bunch of copies of yourself. If it's one person, one vote. And so now you have to deal with that problem and so on. So you could imagine one where like we like, as long as we don't fix the values, we could like start with like this one person, one vote democracy type thing, or whatever it is that the people who are experts in this, who are not me, say we should do. So you could start with the system like that, and then just in the same way that like I know the U.S. better than anywhere else, but the U.S. Constitution has been amended to like give voting rights to more people. Similarly, you can like amend this like institution over time as like things change crazily.
I suppose at least for the time being, it could begin as one vote per natural person related to an algorithm, regardless of how many algorithms they have assisting them.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then there's like a big spectrum in between those two. So like one was like very individualistic. Everyone gets their own AI system, and we just like let that play out how it plays out. And the other one is like very like sort of not exactly centrally planned, but like institution is centrally built, and then the AI system works within that central institution. And then you want your institution to have legitimacy and like good like fairness properties and stuff like this. Yeah,
cool. I'd love to talk about this more, but we have a few questions that we tend to put at the end, just to gauge people's sort of fears and their wishes for what's going to happen. I'm going to start with the negative one so we can finish on a positive. But
great.
What concerns you about AI?
So, I mean, I've been talking about how, super intelligent agents with the wrong sorts of goals just, like, do really bad shit. Maybe it, like, kills us all or something, depending on what its goal is. That, obviously.
Yeah.
The broader theme there is, like, there's a specification problem. We don't know how to give it the goal that we want to give it. And this crops up in a bunch of other places. So people talk about fairness concerns. I mean, the main problem is there is no good definition of fairness that everyone will agree upon. And you see this in the literature. The literature is like, here are like a few criterions of fairness. You can never get all of them together except if you're on like a knife's edge.
It's the pain of studying philosophy. It's sort of like, we'll hear one theory and that's completely watertight. This has got to be true. And then the next lecture, this is completely contradictory, but also watertight.
Yeah.
So in this context, we're thinking of like utilitarianism versus egalitarianism. Maybe there's a bit of like diminishing marginal utility or something else within that. And all of them seem in different instances to make perfect sense. But as far as getting one which is universal, never happened.
Exactly, right? And so like in the fairness case, you have an AI system.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere is always going to be able to say that it's unfair because it's going to not meet one of the criteria for fairness. And like, we can't easily fix this because we don't, like, there's no criterion to actually do, to actually like use to teach our AI systems. So like anywhere where we want strong guarantees of our AI system, which involves like some fuzzy notions like fairness or explainability or stuff like this. It currently seems quite hard to get AI systems to actually meet those criteria, and so I'm like fairly worried about that. I mean, I think the AI research community will be able to come up with like reasonable enough solutions, but not necessarily. But I doubt that they will come up with perfect solutions. Still, seems like an area that we need to put more research into.
And ending on that positive, what excites you most about AI?
Man, I feel like I want to go back to like the story of like how we've developed as a species. We are now in the regime where like material goods are just not free certainly, but they're like ridiculously cheap. And like a friend made this point to me, is like, back in the day, you had to like spend most of your effort just like getting enough food to survive. It's like, call it 2,000 calories. Like a jar of peanut butter is like probably about 2,000 calories. You can buy it for like, I think it's $2 in the States. I don't know what it is here. And so even at like, minimum wage of like $10 an hour, which is lower than the minimum wage in most parts of the US, that's like 12 minutes of work. Like, we've gone from a full day's work to 12 minutes of work for like all the calories you need. It's kind of, it's mind-boggling, right?
Like these sort of conversations like, food's getting really expensive now, and you think, all right, so your banana costs what, 20p? How much would it have cost you to get that from the other side of the world? 300-400 years ago? No, well, I don't know. I'm not great with my history. Let's say 1,000 years ago. That seems more realistic to the point where they couldn't get bananas over. I quite like eating bananas. That's been a good result for me.
It's crazy. Yeah. So, we've done this like great job as a species of like being able to do material things.
Yeah.
What we haven't done so well, I think, is like being able to do information type stuff, coordination.
Yeah.
Like we've got these, great computers in our heads, these brains, but they just like can't talk to each other very well. They're like limited to like this mode of communication at its fastest. And like the internet's helped with this, and that you can now, instead of doing one-on-one conversations, you can do one-to-many conversations.
Yeah.
But even so, like, it's not great. And you can see this in the fact that like many of the biggest companies in the world are like primarily solving these sorts of information and coordination problems. And like this is like the sort of domain that AI is like just like perfect for, because there's lots of data because the internet. It's completely software based, digital. It depends what you're trying to do, but many of the problems are like software based and digital. So like easy for AI to operate in, whereas in contrast, getting AI to work in the real world is like a horrible mess.
Yeah.
And like there's just like so much value to be had.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this sort of outside view perspective makes me like really excited for all the coordination problems I don't even see yet that like AI is going to solve.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's going to be a very big deal even in the near future. This is like even like, maybe it requires some amount of intelligence, I don't know. But yeah, man, solving coordination problems. Yes.
Awesome.
Go.
Well, thank you so much, Rohin. I'll post some links in the description of this as well, so you can find a link to Rohin's podcast. This is the podcast. Rohin's newsletter. And we'll see if there's any other material we want to add to that as well. So,
okay, great. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks.
Hi, and welcome to the end of the podcast. Thanks again to Rohin Shah, and indeed Ben Gilbert, or should I say the real Ben Gilbert, as he is on Twitter. You can find him there, and you can find more about Rohin Shah at rohinshah.com. If you're indeed a Ben or a Benetta and want to get involved with the Machine Ethics podcast, or have a topic or someone we should interview, then let us know at hello@machineethics.net. You can find more episodes at machine-ethics.net. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/machineethics, and you can find us on Instagram, Machine Ethics Podcast, Twitter, YouTube, etc. This is Ben Byford signing off, and thanks for listening.